with the release of Virtuosa, she has helped me in quite a few of my Elite Zero Level 1 clears with her Necrosis damage. But the question has to be asked, well, why don't I use Valarqvin as well? Doesn't she also deal Necrosis damage? And she does. But before I go into detail for that, let me explain how elemental damage works. So with an operator dealing Necrosis damage, you will see a circle that fills up when they are dealt elemental damage, which includes Necrosis damage and later on burn damage with the release of Wormy, just like when enemies deal elemental damage to our operators. And when that bar fills up, it procs an effect. And it takes 1000 elemental damage in order to proc one of these effects. So for Necrosis damage, when you fill up the circle, or bar, whatever you want to call it, it will deal 800 elemental damage per second for 15 seconds for a total of 12,000 elemental damage, and currently there isn't any enemies that resist elemental damage, so it is effectively true damage. And in addition to that, Necrosis also applies a debuff that reduces the enemy's attack by 50%, which is massive. Pretty much means as soon as an enemy is procced with Necrosis, they aren't doing too much damage after that. So, going back to Valarqvin. So let me just show you what Valarqvin can do.
May the blizzard cleanse life and death.
Okay, hold up. Stop right there. Can someone explain to me what that is? That tiny sliver of elemental damage? I had to wait 17 seconds for this? Okay. So Valarqvin, with their skill 1, does approximately 70 Necrosis damage. To put into perspective on how bad that is about 5 seconds of Virtuosa's area of effect, talent, Necrosis damage, let alone her skill. Or, for Diamante, who also I use primarily to build up the Necrosis bar, with his skill 1, he does that in about 2 or 3 hits with his skill 1 active. So to summarize, Valarqvin, because she takes so long to proc Necrosis, or to put it another way, she deals so little Necrosis damage by herself that she is more likely to kill whatever she is attacking before proccing Necrosis a single time. Because it takes like 4 minutes in order for her to proc Necrosis by herself. So, why is Valarqvin so bad, you might ask? Well, I think it is because Hypergryph did not know how strong they wanted elemental damage to be. Valarqvin is the very first operator that we have gotten that dealt any kind of elemental damage on our side. And because of that, she was very experimental. If we look at her growth in terms of especially her skills, even at the difference between skill level 7 and mastery 3 for both of her skills is very massive. And especially since she is a 5-star, I can definitely see that Hypergryph was very cautious on how they balanced her. And I have personally used Valarqvin Elite 2 on another account. She is actually pretty good. However, you do pretty much need masteries in order for her to be really good. And even with the release of Virtuosa, I honestly am not really sure how I feel about being able to proc Necrosis. To put into perspective, Virtuosa by herself against a elite enemy or lower, so non-boss enemies, takes around 20 seconds in order to proc Necrosis. So pretty much, as long as the elite enemy is isolated, I can pretty much just stall them with fast redeploys or something, and they get killed as soon as I proc Necrosis. And it's very evident in my WD-7 clear that I haven't made a video on yet, that this really dangerous enemy, the War Phantom, any other way, he would have been a really big problem to deal with, because he summons that attack drone that halves defense, and also he summons the drone that gives defense and heals him back. And Virtuosa kind of cheeses him in that way. But it also gives me an alternative that, against hard enemies, that stalling is an option, and I don't have to wait 5 minutes to have a caster slowly kill them. So that is kind of nice. But overall, I am pretty saddened by how bad Valarqvin ended up being. But as things currently stand, I think these two comments sum up my thoughts on Valarqvin pretty well. With all of that being said, on my recent community poll, a lot of you wanted to see me discuss Elite 0 Level 1 balance. So that is hopefully going to be the next commentary video I work on. So, if you're interested in that, see you then.